I'm Danielle Harel, one of the co-founders of the Somatica Institute of Sex and Relationship Coaching. And of course, with me is Celeste.
Oh, I'm Celeste. Yes, and I'm the other co-founder of the Somatica Institute. And we offer personal growth and professional development in the realm of sex and relationships. So we just want people to have the most fulfilling emotional and erotic lives that they could have. And we do have some background in all of this. Danielle has her PhD in human sexuality studies and her master's in social work. I have a master's in human sexuality studies. But I'll tell you that most of what we've learned about humans in this realm, we have learned from being in intimacy and practicing with intimacy and teaching intimacy with all of our clients and our students. And that has been our biggest classroom and how we developed this method to help people in their real lives around intimacy.
Yeah, and we are very excited because on Friday we are launching a new training. It's an online training, or mostly online training, in 7 days in person, and this is the last webinar for it. So hang in there with us until the end, and we'll tell you more about the training if you want to join, or what you can still get. We're still taking applications until tonight, but we really want to start by sticking with the topic that is also part of what we're teaching in the training. Yes.
Our goal for today is really to help you better understand the dynamics of sexual tension, and we want you to be able to understand that so you can have more of it in your life if that is something that you like. You know, we were talking earlier this morning, and we always want to remind everyone that there's no one size fits all. So some people really thrive with a lot of sexual tension, and some people don't want all of that intensity and uncertainty in their erotic lives. And so one size fits none, and we just offer tools to everyone to help them try to find out what kind of erotic connections and experiences they want to have in their lives, and emotional connections and experiences they want to have in their lives.
And just to go back a little bit to Somatica and how it's related. So I said it is for personal growth and professional development. And as you see, whatever we teach coaches, we also teach people, because we believe people deserve the same level of education that coaches get to help them. So today we took a topic that's very prevalent in everyone's life, like how to make yourself more alive, more feeling this sexual tension in your life, and feeling more excited about walking around in the world. Even with masks, you can still, like, circulate some sexual excitement between you and yourself with social distancing, but yay. So what causes sexual tension? Because we want to help you have this idea and know how to cultivate it. So sexual tension is caused by staying in the state of anticipation of, and as sexual desire and arousal just slowly build.
Yeah, and I think that's even also a little bit about like what is sexual tension. It's sort of that like feeling inside of your body, like, oh my goodness, I want this so badly. I want the person, I want the release, I want to feel the thing that I'm ready to feel, right? And as that builds in our body, it prepares the body for big, joyful, emotional release and erotic release, sometimes orgasm. So as you know, as tension builds higher, we create more potential for bigger, more intense, exciting erotic experiences. And we were thinking about it, and we're like, well, do people even know what causes it or how to create more of it in their lives? And that's why we created this webinar. So I think there's sort of two different ways that sexual tension can happen. One of them is kind of like out in the world with other people, and one of them is more in the bedroom, and we're going to talk about both of those. I think a lot of times sexual tension happens out in the world when there's some kind of, like, two people realize that they are attracted to each other, but they're maybe like not sure that it's okay to be attracted to each other. Maybe there's some kind of barrier, like they work together, or they're of different, one is in their 20s and one is in their 50s, or there's just sort of like social taboos or cultural taboos, or reasons why they might not feel like they're allowed to be together, or maybe even sometimes one or the other of them is in a relationship. And then there begins to be this kind of flirtation or attraction that happens And it's almost like the barrier or the taboo makes it have to last a lot longer, kind of staying in that, like, is this going to happen? You know, am I going to break the barrier and make the move? And that kind of like builds a lot of tension in the body. And I'm thinking about, like, even, early on in my youth, I remember the intensity of, like, the taboo of, like, you're not supposed to have sex, but you really want it, and there's somebody who you're really attracted to, and all of that intensity. I remember it was just like, if somebody just, like, who I was attracted to just, like, barely brushed their hand against my leg, it would just, like, travel, just create a big explosion inside of me, all the way from my pussy up through my chest. And without even anything happening, right? Like, just like this barely, so that kind of sexual tension, I don't even know. I don't know if that ever can happen again, because the hormones were behind it all the way. Those teenage hormones are intense.
But that's kind of brings a good point, like sexual tension happens a lot in your head and what you build out of the situation and how you kind of imagine what's happening and who's attracted to you and who's not. So this projection on the world, and sometimes there is, like, you had some communication with someone, they told you they're excited about you, but like keep circulating in your head and staying excited about it and not knowing what's going to happen and when it's going to happen creates a lot of arousal in the body.
I'm having flashbacks.
Of course you do.
Good kind, the good kind.
And like, people talk a lot about, like, how affairs are always so hot, and affairs are hot mostly because there's a lot of taboo and sexual tension in them. And if you break this, like, forbiddenness of it, a lot of the hotness can go away. It just, something to think about. Not that we recommend or not recommend it, just like what makes it so hot is a lot of it is the build up, the sexual tension, the sneaking around and not knowing, is it okay, is it not okay? So for sexual, I want to say that sexual tension is something really, really awesome to play with if people are interested in that. Both if you're dating, if you're in long-term relationship, if you are fantasizing by yourself, it's all there for you to take and create.
Yeah, and I think, like, as an adult, we can start to notice it in the world, in ourselves. Like, you can feel the building of sexual tension with another person if, like, maybe you're looking over at them and, like, the gaze lasts, the eye contact between you lasts a little bit longer than maybe it usually does, or you're hugging someone hello or goodbye, and you just give it extra squeeze, or you take a deeper breath to move the sensation through your whole body. And that's kind of how oh, there might be some sexual tension here with this other person, especially if you feel them.
Especially if you feel them checking you out, or like taking time to check you out, and they don't, how people don't break the gaze. I remember being in the library one day, staying in line, holding books, and it was like this guy was checking me out, and I was like, I didn't know, like, I was like, what's happening? Got so excited, dropped all the books, but it was really fun. I remember it till this day. Yeah,
I think that's a good point, Danielle. I feel like those moments of very high intensity are some of the moments that we remember the most in our erotic history. And I mean, it's not even like you were having sex, you were standing in the library of books, but yet that is a memory of, like, one of your hottest sexual moments, or like the person just barely touching my thigh. It's like, ooh. So, it's potent stuff, which is why it's really helpful to kind of understand the dynamics about it and know how to create it.
definitely. Yeah. So maybe we'll go to talk about the components of how to create. And maybe I'll start with a story, like the same, like, situation, like in the library. I think, like, it makes just life so much better. So I wanted to look at sexual tension as something that you cultivate. You can let yourself open your prism, your, like, mind towards the opportunity of, oh, maybe I'll meet this person's eyes or this person's eyes. And it's nothing to do with commitment. It's like a moment of experience in your life, the same way that you are excited about, like, being outdoors, or or connecting with friends. It can be this like moment of letting yourself have this pilot light on of your sexuality and feeling like, ooh, that's exciting. I can like connect with someone for a brief moment. If I have some sexual thoughts in my head, I got benefit. I don't know if they have it, but something about me carrying my turn on can create this arousal uh, and warmth in my body, and life worth living.
So I think there's kind of two ways that you can create sexual tension. One is in the bedroom, and one is more out in the world. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to create sexual tension in the bedroom first, and then we'll talk more about how to create it if you're kind of like dating or in long-term relationship, out in the world in the more like psychological way. Um, the first way is to actually have a tremendous amount of patience. And I think learning both what your partner is turned on by physiologically, like how they like their body touched or kissed or smelled or licked, or learn how to really take your time, because the slower build, what creates the sexual tension and makes it rise. So really learning the parts of your partner's body that are the most arousing, but also maybe like if you know the parts, then you don't go directly to them. You kind of like sneak up to them, with like kisses or bites or strokes of your hand. I think sexual tension, one of the biggest things that it requires is patience to kind of slow down and say, okay, yeah, we're gonna get wherever we're going, but I'm gonna feel every little thing, and I'm gonna help my partner feel every little thing along the way on the journey. And that, I mean, I just think about like the longer that there's like build up and, sort of like deepening closer and closer and closer to my most turn, like during oral sex or something, if somebody just goes right and starts licking me, it's like, oh, okay, I have to catch up. But if somebody's like biting my thighs or, stroking my hips and kissing my belly, and then I'm like, okay, when are you going to get there? When are you going to get there? So it's a very different experience to anticipate and long for something than it is to just, oh, there it is. Okay, let me see if I can handle it, kind of thing.
Yeah, which brings us to really talk about the two routes of sexual tension. What Celeste was talking about now is the physiological route of building sexual tension. And this is like building anticipation with touch. And also the psychological route of building sexual tension, which is like you can build it by creating an arousing story or flirting the way we talked before, like creating this tension of not knowing what's going to happen, and building anticipation. So if you use both those routes, as of course, like that's the magic formula. But at times you can move between one to another. You don't have to constantly narrate the experience. But
Yeah, and the psychological route, if we're talking about in the bedroom as opposed to in the world, also can take a little bit of pre-planning. Like, say that I know that my partner really loves to be tied up, and I think, okay, tonight's the night. I'm going to tie them up tonight. So I might, in order for them to know that it's going to happen and to start building sexual tension in their body, maybe I would put the ropes on the bed. And so that when they get up in the morning, they sort of see, oh, it's happening today. And, they start thinking about it and fantasizing about it, which starts creating sexual tension in the body. And then like a little bit later, I say, tonight when I have you in those ropes, I'm going to do whatever I want to your body. And builds more and more deeply in their body as they think, oh, I'm going to get my favorite thing tonight, right? And it's just like, then when it happens, there's a lot more arousal and excitement already, and anticipation already in the system before you even start.
yes, and of course you can start building the sexual tension also, like by texting to your partner or telling them what you want to do to them, and there's like more like preemptive ways of connecting that's not necessarily face to face, and building a story together or one for each other. Some people really like the togetherness and they like to create the sexual build up together. Like, I'm going to say one thing, you're going to up it. I'm going to say one thing, you're going to up it. And we're going to build a story together for higher arousal until we like can't wait. And you see it in movies. You see in movies like how they like, there's so much tension. This is usually between strangers, by the way, or they have to play strangers. I'm sad that in movies they don't show yet how to build sexual tension in the bedroom with long-term partners, but one day we will. But you see how like people just like get to this moment that like can't help it, and then like push each other into this like against the wall, and that's how it happens in the movie. But there are like many other ways that preemptively happen, because in the movies they don't show you how to build it. They just show you like something happened, you know something happened, you know that sexual tension was there because they pushed each other against the wall. And there are ways to cultivate it, which we're talking about now, such as texting, checking each other out, showing, like starting to build anticipation by creating like details of the story without like just going right to the end, which is really, by the way, important for sexting as well. If you are like want to turn your partner on, you don't want to just jump to them being naked. You want to build up about like the smell of the skin, and I want to look in your eyes, and you know, like things that depends on what turns each other on, but specific stories. But you don't want to jump to the end. You want to build it up.
And somebody says, how do you create mystery and anticipation when you know your partner so well that you can guess what they're going to do and how? And I do feel like that a lot of that has to do with you bringing something different, because, you know, in some ways it's a dynamic, it's a cycle between you. And so probably you're doing a lot of the same things and they're doing a lot of the same things. But if you start to talk completely differently about sex, or you start to bring in experiences or interactions that they've never had before, but slowly, and making sure that they're comfortable with them, sometimes helps people bring different parts of their psyche out, like whether you go out in the world and pretend to pick each other up, or whether you just say, okay, today I'm going to be, you know, this and you're going to be that. Sometimes that helps them get into parts of their psychology that they don't usually show out to you. So those are some ways to help.
Yeah, there's a great question here. What happens if our partner doesn't respond to our building anticipation? And it's a really great question, because sometimes, you know, many times you and your partner might have different things that turn you on, and then like what you think is going to be a turn on for them might not be a turn on for them. And for that, we have, again, like we have our book Coming Together, when we talk about how to help you and everyone identify what turn you on. And then communicate it to your partner, so you'll be able to find something, help you to find something that is working for both of you. Yes, Celeste's screen, I think, is freezing once in a while. Yes.
Sorry that I keep freezing. Yeah, no, somebody was saying that I keep freezing, so yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so oh, without letting your partner down. I just love this question, because it's like suggestion or advice for planning and building anticipation without letting your partner down. What if something gets in the way of the plan? Once I promised my partner a pair of my panties and unexpectedly got my period. Then he was pretty disappointed. Yeah, like life can be disappointing. We can only do our best, and sometimes thing gets in the way. And I know it sounds like a really sucky answer what I'm saying, but but we really definitely talk a lot about disappointment in Somatica, both if you're doing coaching or taking the training, because disappointment is part of life. I am thinking there are ways to, in the moment of building, that you can work through it, but now I'm thinking about, like, you get your period and you kind of end up having sex. That creates more anticipation. You can like work around and like keep engaging without knowing like he can get into your panties, and that can be very hot indeed. In the same way, maybe not the same. They might still be disappointed because they wanted one thing, and that's the other side of the same coin, right?
I'm often trying to slow things down to build tension, but partner prefers to dive in, like the loss of control that happens with waiting, anticipation, unknown. Perhaps diving in can feel safer than waiting, anticipating. This can make it hard. So that's a situation all the time where people kind of have different needs around sexual tension, or, you know, whatever it is that their desires are. And it's very important to have a conversation, just acknowledge it. Seems like sometimes build tension and you want to dive right in, like enjoy tension without feeling like there's this loss of control, you know, to sort of have that conversation. And sometimes people, you know, get together, totally love each other, want each other, they attract each other, but just their sexual desires are different. And it's very, very important to be able to talk about those differences without thinking I have the right way to do it and they have the wrong way to do it, or vice versa. Just like, oh, we have a discrepancy, and to start to do it and talk a lot about do that in coming together.
Uh, Great question about sheltering in place and then how we, or social distancing, and how we can create tension with our partners while doing that. And it's also, it goes back to realizing that sexual tension is not just around touch. You can do a lot of things with your words. And that can be very powerful to create sexual tension with like teasing and building excitement and building a story together and going back and forth with texting. And some people do, you know, building some video sex with each other. So there's, it's not the same because it doesn't have the same experience of being touched and touching, but you can create the tension part is actually social distancing is powerful for tension, not so powerful for reward, but very powerful for the tension and the buildup of the tension. And then you can keep telling stories about how you masturbated to whatever they told you and how they turned you on. So there's a lot of buildup that can be drawn this way.
Somebody asked for Somatica. Students and clients have sex with their coaches to practice. The answer is no, you can't have sex with your coaches, but the great thing with Somatica is it is a closed practice, but there is mutual touch. We don't kiss our clients, but we do practice teaching people how to create sexual tension, for example, or all of the different tools of seduction. And in that, there's mutual touch. And so it can be a really important way to learn, because you don't know if you're doing it well until you get some good, honest feedback while you're actually doing it, right? Like if you're just talking, oh, sexual tension is like this, but if you don't have a chance to try and really get feedback, then you don't know how you're coming across. And so as Somatica coaches, we give that feedback all the time and help people learn the tools of sexual tension and all of the tools of seduction experientially.
Yeah. So the another question here is like, if you could speak to about the feeling of feeling overwhelmed, not just with uncertainty and fear, but also with pleasure. And it's such an amazing question. People don't talk about this feeling of overwhelm of arousal. It takes some time to learn to hold this all this arousal in our body and be able to tolerate it. It's funny, we think we all want more pleasure, but sometimes we don't know how to hold it and tolerate it. And learning how to breathe into it and really like calm a nervous system as we're feeling the rise. So you feel the rise of the arousal, and then you just like breathe into it and you let it spread through your body and not just like get stuck in your head or chest. And then you like feel a little bit of desire and you breathe it and let it spread through your body. And it's kind of like a way to modulate. And sometimes it gets too hard, too much for me, and I start laughing. That's my way. Sometimes like releasing some of the tension because it's so good and it's growing and it's so wonderful, and then I have to like laugh from joy to let it spread even more. So it's not like it's kind of like a elongated laugh. That's my way of spreading and tolerating more pleasure. And sometimes yeah, and it's okay to ask your partner to slow down a little bit as you're building it, because it takes time to learn this ability to hold on to pleasure.
And also someone asks, what do you do to help your partner feel open and free sexually without the help of drugs and alcohol? I'm naturally very sexually free and I want to help my partner feel that way without substance. Sometimes in a relationship, when one partner feels like they're free, there can be some shame or shutdown on the part of the other partner, also even just feeling compared in that way. So the more that you can be celebratory and supportive and enthusiastic about, you know, the moments when they're free, but also to really feel like they really feel like you are you're the guardian of their boundaries. So not like you're trying to push them to be more free, but you want to know what boundaries they have. You want to make sure that they feel safe, and you want them to feel comfortable all of the time. If they feel more like held by you in that way as opposed to pushed by you, then they may be able to soften their protective or defensive stance, thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? It's all going to be new. I don't know, and while probably giving them more information about what's going to happen so that they can wrap their head around it and be prepared emotionally for it. All of those things can help people feel more free and comfortable. And also, sometimes they can go on their own journey if they want to, but you really have to see if that's something that they want for themselves, to learn how to be more open and sexually free. We coach people on that all of the time. But feeling like compared or pressured usually makes people shut down even more.
Another great question, how you can ask for feedback if you're not sure what's happening without breaking the tension. And a good way to do it is, for example, to say, I just love the feel of your skin, and and say like, oh, I would love it if you like, if that's something that feels good, if you kind of moan or make sound, like you can keep the conversation as you keep the touch or keep the compliments. Like it's a little bit like the way you say it as opposed to what you say.
So I feel like we talked about the physiological route, out in the world and in the bedroom, and we talked about the psychological route in the bedroom, but we haven't talked about the psychological route out in the world. And that's where you're like out in the world when you're dating. You're looking to create situations that have more tension in them, and it can be as simple as, I think a lot of times in our current dating world, and I am, what's the word, I am the least judgmental. Like, I'm gonna have sex on a first date or a second date, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But I think sometimes when we jump into bed right away, or even like jump into sex right away, as opposed to the warm up or the build up, then we can lose out on some of this sexual tension that might have built if we take a little bit more time and wait. So, one way to create more sexual tension is to go more slowly in the dating process. And maybe like the first time that you have a date, and of course, there's different mores in different places. So, here we are in the Bay Area, it's quite liberal and very, app based, lots of swiping. So people are jumping into bed with each other pretty quickly. And again, that's fabulous, nothing wrong with it. We're talking about how to build sexual tension. And so, maybe like on a first date, you just like have a very sexy kiss, and you say, oh gosh, that was amazing, I can't wait to see you again, or something. And then the next date, maybe you just like go a little bit further, and still, even if you are going to go to sex, whenever you go to sex, don't just rip each other's clothes off and start, having intercourse, but really say like, let's make this experience like the first experience, an experience of very slow building arousal. So that's kind of a way to do it out in the dating world quite consciously. I think sometimes people also, who really like sexual tension, will often be attracted to people who are unavailable, almost like unconsciously going after, or sometimes consciously going after people who are unavailable in order to create that sexual tension for themselves, because it is the thing that turns them on the most, longing and wanting and not knowing, and even, who knows, sometimes people really like being secretive, or like the idea of things that they can't have, and that creates sexual tension for them as well. So it's really helpful to know if you're somebody who really likes those things, and to see how you can create them out in the world for yourself, in a way that feels like good to you and in integrity.
And of course, you can promise yourself not to have sex until however many dates, and then you can just like keep building the anticipation, and just like, oh, and one of my friends, she has this like this policy that she is not taking her clothes off, but she's doing everything around it. And this was so hot. She would bring her magic wand, the Hitachi, in the date, knowing that she's not going to have sex. It was completely spoken with her partner. She wasn't like, she wasn't holding off. There was a lot of holding in and excited and turn on, but not taking the clothes off. So
thank you for asking this follow-up question, and I think it's so sweet and wonderful that you say it. I've if I've compared and pressured before, causing my partner to shut down, any advice on recreating a safe and positive, inviting environment. I think the first thing to do is to empathize verbally with them and to let them know that you are owning that that might have shut them down. So you could say something like, hey, I know that in the past I have pressured you and compared you, and that I can imagine how bad that makes you feel, and how kind of shut down and uncomfortable it's made you feel. And, you know, I think I was just overly enthusiastic about what I wanted, and I wasn't really paying attention to your feelings in the situation. And I'm really sorry about that. You know, to have the other person understand that you are, that you get how it's impacted them, and to say, like, I really want to shift that dynamic between us, and I want to really support your boundaries and understand what helps keep you safe. And I also want to hear if there's anything that you want to tell me about how that's felt to you. And then you need to listen non-defensively to those feelings, and just let them offload, because there can be a lot of pain, and they might need to cry and tell you how bad it's been before you can get to a better place to find a new dynamic between you. You know, so just keep saying, like, yeah, that must have been really hard. No, I hear that's awful to feel like you're less than, or, you know, and you need to stay with them as they let those feelings out. That's the first step, and then you can start to go towards finding out what helps them feel more safe, and how you can be the champion of their boundaries so that they can feel more free to open up.
Yeah, another great question. When we're talking about sexually free, one of my partners says she doesn't know how she feels about certain acts until it happens, but I feel like that isn't consent. How do you use build up to find out if it is going well, or should I wait until uh, what I call consent, which is great that you said what I call consent, because in Somatica, we talk a lot about consent, and we talk a lot about like how different people need different kinds of consent. Some people need very affirmative consent, and to say ahead of time, I would want you to do that, or I'm not going to do that. And that helps them feel safe and helps them feel that that's what they need in order to even open up and start to feel arousal. They need this experience. And some people really need not to know. It seems like one of your partners is one of those people that really like not to know and be surprised, and then have the permission, and that's kind of like have the permission to say, let's shift or stop if she doesn't like something. And that's something like acquiring it as we go along, like an ongoing consent as we go along. And it's really a matter of preference. There's no one thing that's right and one thing that's wrong. It's really like negotiating and talking with your partner about what's right for them and for you, and really trusting and telling them that I really want to trust that if you say that, you will stop me, and you can do like experiment a little bit outside of a sexual experience to see if she really does, and find time like that, so you will feel secure that she will, and you'll be able to keep going with it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things, is for you to say, so what scares me about that is that I'm afraid I'm going to cross your boundaries or something, or you're going to be resentful, or you're going to feel hurt or violated in some way. And then I'm going to look like this horrible perpetrator, when all I want to do is give you pleasure. So what's our agreement about you taking responsibility for those boundaries? You know, I think that's the part that can help keep you safe, is that you make sure that they're not going to go into, that they understand that it's dangerous for you in that way emotionally, and that they understand that, you know, that you're doing that together as a team to make it safe for both of you. And your sexual tension, no matter how good it feels at the time, never comes to fruition ever. How do you deal with the disappointment of that over and over without creating negative associations? And how do you not resent people who don't play the sexual tension game but give you sex without it? It feels like a vicious cycle sometimes. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I think the first thing to do is to really know about yourself and embrace about yourself and even celebrate about yourself. I love sexual tension. That's the thing that turns me on the most, because um, then when you are communicating with your partners, I think a lot of times you might say, "Oh, I like sexual tension," but they have no idea what that means. And in order to teach a partner who is available how to give you sexual tension, you'll need to actually be much more instructive than that. In other words, you'll need to say, like, it would really help me is when we first start touching, if you start touching, my arms, or, kissing my neck a little bit first, and to slow down and to breathe with me. And then you can say, like, can I show you what I mean? And then you do it on their body. So, that way you can kind of help partners who are available learn how to give you this sexual attention that you want. And some people will be able to do it, and some people won't want to be instructed at all. So you kind of have to find people who are willing to also listen to you and try new things. If the people who are unavailable are, as you say, so unavailable that you can't even get to the fun part with them, then your best bet is to try to train people who are available to give you the sexual tension that you need.
Ah, wow, it's a really great really awesome questions. I find that often sexual attention disappears if the emotional connection is solid. Can you speak about the two pillars of desire and intimacy and how sometimes they are incompatible? Yeah, that's like exactly the stuff we are talking about. For some people, the having the intimacy can create loss of arousal and desire, and for some people it can create the opposite. So it's a little bit like knowing yourself and knowing that that's something that you need, and knowing that you would want to organize your life in a way that will give you opportunities to create some sort of, you will be someone who is seeking opportunities for novelty, for unavailability or things like that, and that will probably help you stay connected. It is, we talk, like we talk a lot about ways to create those situations, maybe in safe ways, or think about how to create the situation in safe ways so you won't break up your relationship if you are have some sort of commitments that might hurt them.
So I'm addicted to sexual tension and not able to like people that are available to me. How can I break this cycle and trust that the sex will be equally amazing? Well, I will say that part of being able to have intimacy in our lives is to deal with some disappointment. So I think, like I said, it's really important to celebrate yourself in terms of knowing, like, I love sexual tension and that's what I like the most. And that's going to give me my pinnacle sexual experiences. Um, but sometimes if you go for someone who who is more available and it's less arousing to you, you could still have amazing sex with them. It might not be, honestly, it might not be equally amazing. So I think there is something about sort of saying, okay, if what I'm really interested in is sexual tension, and I usually try to get that met with unavailable people, then yeah, you probably won't get your sexual needs met at all. Or you'll get your sexual needs met, but you won't get your relationship needs met. So sometimes it's like, okay, I'm gonna find some other pathways or ways to create as much sexual tension with these more available people as possible, and just accept that there might be a little bit of a discrepancy in how intensely hot it is.
I love this question. I understand how important it is to ask what I want and I need, or show it. But I'm a teacher, and sometimes it feels like taking my job into the bedroom, especially when I need to tell them the same thing many times each time as we are having sex. I just want to surrender. How do I find the balance? And it's beautiful because when we talk about core desires, again, coming together is a big thing about here, because related to this our book Coming Together, because it is talking a lot about how people are different, and it sounds like your partner needs a lot of instruction and you just want to surrender, or they want to make sure they do it right and you just want to surrender. So I really think talking explicitly about that, but also knowing that sometimes you're not going to get exactly what you want, and asking them about how comfortable they are in that process can be like a very important negotiation process that you might do you probably want to do it outside of the bedroom and not while you're having sex. And then help them see what will be ways that will help you surrender. And maybe there are ways that he can ask questions and sometimes not. So really talk about those experiences outside to help you both create a better experience. That's one thing. And another thing, also like give room for workshopping, that you don't fully commit to a whole sexual experience, but you just like say, hey, how about we try a segment when you do this without asking me a question? I'll just let myself surrender and see how it works. So you kind of practice little bits of it and seeing and getting feedback.
So I feel like these next two questions are pretty similar to each other in some ways. One of them is, what do you do if you have a partner who is unwilling to go through the process of talking about what you would like to experience to build tension, arousal, and desire? It's one thing if you're dating and come across someone who won't, but what if it's your husband, wife, committed partner? Yeah, no, I know it's really challenging if you are in a long-term relationship with someone and this is not a topic that they want to discuss. And, I think you can bring it up numerous times and you can really say, hey, this is so important to me. Like, we have to find a way to face this or look at this, or we need to find help. That's why we're here as coaches, to help people also through some of those challenges. And you also need to sort of look inside of yourself and say to yourself, because sometimes you ask over and over and over again, and your partner just says no or rebuffs you. You need to make sure you've asked and you've said, like, this is extremely important to me and we need to talk about it. I'm miserable. It's hurting me. I feel sad. I feel alone, especially to share vulnerably how it impacts you that they won't do this with you. Or I feel, it's like it's unfair because you are getting what you want, but I'm not getting what I want. So I feel, like under taken care of in the relationship or whatever, to really express it. And then if they still don't, if they won't do those things with you, then you really have to check inside of yourself and say, like, okay, this is how my partner is. Is this a deal breaker for me, or is this something that I can live with? Don't do that until you've really exhausted all, really sharing with them how it feels for you. And if it is a deal breaker, that's the time to tell them. I know we say like ultimatums are horrible, but ultimatums are horrible except for when they're true. At a certain point, a person needs the information. Hey, if this stays like this, not a threat. If it's not true, don't say it. But hey, if this stays like this, I actually can't stay with you. Then that also might cause them to realize, oh, I have to look at this inside of myself. And even if they find that they can't be that for you after that process, sometimes saying that not as a threat, but as a fact, if it's really true, helps transform something in the relationship, because people realize, oh, I can't just ignore this problem anymore. This is much more significant than I thought it was.
Yeah, I see a lot of very similar questions here that are relating to how do I know what I want? How do I make sure that what I want doesn't trigger my partner? How do I know that, I'm not reading, I'm summarizing what I remember. How do I, like this matching, how do I figure out and communicate about it? So first, we definitely have a book coming together on Amazon. It is an amazing book. We really spelled it out, how to find out, many, many ways to find out and compare notes until you figure out. It's an ongoing process to figure out what turns you on and what turns you on psychologically, and what is the feeling and what are the acts. We talk about all of that in the book. We talk about how to communicate it with your partner. We talk about what to do if you're not able to communicate with your partner. And I mean, like, if your fantasies are different and your desires are different, and we talk about different ways of bridging and creating different sexual experiences. So highly recommended. Try it. We also talk a lot about all those tools in the Somatica training, which I really want to bring it and talk, because, hey, we have like a few more minutes left, and then we'll go back to answering questions if we have some left, or might not be able to, but we'll do our best. So we really focus this webinar on personal growth and how people can benefit from the training if they do it for their own growth and not just to become coaches, because the training is both for personal growth and professional development. And what we saw is that when people take the training, it really helps them transform so many things in their lives, because it gives you tools and to manage and navigate those places in life when people are different. Which is always, and when people need different things, which is many times and frequent, and not go to the guessing game, and how to do it in a loving, kind way, and how to understand what you want and offer it in a loving way, how to offer boundaries that about what you don't want in a loving way, how to keep knowing that nothing is a set set experience, and life keeps changing and moving, and your desire is going to keep developing. So how you keep communicating and what feels good one day and doesn't feel good the other day. It's our training is full of those tools, including tools to work with disappointment and to work with when things don't go well, and how to do repair when things are, when you hit each other's buttons, which again happen a lot, at least for me, no matter how much. It's not like you will be able to avoid those things, but you will have tools how to work with them as they come along.
Yes, and somebody asked, does the training provide you a qualification? And the answer is yes. If you go through the certification process after you take the core training, then you become a certified sexological body. Hang on, my brain. A certified Somatica practitioner. And also, we are certified by the American College of Sexologists, and you can get that certification as well if you go through our training and become a certified Somatica practitioner.
As we said, we have a training that starts on Friday. You can still sign up. We have a few open spots where it's a huge, amazing training from people all over the world, 5 modules online, and 1 week in person in California. Depends on when we are able to travel. So again, we have a wonderful international community that is doing it. You'll be able to practice all those tools from your room, from Zoom windows, and practice all the Somatica tools in small groups, and practice with people how to do those tools and apply them in life.
Yes, and you do get a $200 discount for taking this webinar today if you sign up, and we are going to keep signups open until tomorrow night, right? Or tonight, late tonight. Yeah. Also, great question. Can you talk about the negative connotations of teasing and even flirting? What does building anticipation and sexual tension land as an insult to some people? Yeah, I think the thing about teasing is that there have been a lot of people who've had the experience of getting very excited about someone and then finding out that the other person wasn't actually interested, and that the signals that they were giving off were not really what they meant in terms of saying, because sometimes people think flirting means I'm promising that I want to have sex with you. And that's a confusion of our culture, and it's very unfortunate. So, I think sometimes when you're flirting, if you start to get the feeling that somebody is thinking that something different is happening, you would want to say, hey, I'm just a flirt, I'm not available in the dating realm right now, or something like that, to help them have a kind of a container around it. Like, we're just playing here, and I like to play with flirtation because it's fun and it feels really alive to me. I want to make sure that that feels good to you too, almost like getting consent for teasing and flirting, so that people can kind of feel like, okay, this is what's happening. Do I want to engage with it or not? But I do think that teasing and flirting can be really fun as long as both people know that that's what's happening. And definitely, if you're already dating someone or with someone, using those teasing experiences and flirting experiences to build up erotic tension is wonderful. I will say, in long-term relationships, if someone has been teased as a child and they feel like teasing is something that triggers them, that can be another reason that it can cause tension. And then you might say, like, oh, then they might not be able to handle teasing, or they might need a different way of doing it or understanding it in order to feel okay about it. So if you find someone seems to be ruffling when you're playing with that teasing energy, just check in on what it might be making them feel. And somebody says, is there any relation between enjoying being teased or teasing psychologically and BDSM? Yes, some people like teasing to the level of torture, because feeling tortured is what turns them on, which is wonderful. And so you would just want to negotiate that with your partner and make sure that you're both on the same page, that you both want to engage with that and play with that little torture energy a little bit.
Yeah, as well as you can enjoy teasing that has more quality of control, or the same quality, or humiliation, depends what the people will like in the BDSM. It's like a big word. So teasing is also like, teasing and building tension can be is supposed to. If you do it well, it really is matching what turns people on, and you use the same vocabulary and style that turns them on to tease them.
And can we end with like how you know if you're doing it well? Because I really like to talk about like the signs that let you know that somebody is feeling the tension with you, or getting excited, or feeling teased. And so the signs for like when you're not having sex and you're just out in the world is like somebody's blushing or flushing or like laughing a little bit or starting to sweat when you're around. Their breathing becomes deeper or shorter or gaspy when they're near you, or like the way that they look in your eyes is sort of longing, or like they need you, or they want you so bad. Or even like you can tell you've done a good job if somebody sort of like perks up around you. Maybe they're like showing off their muscly chest, or like lifting their breasts, or sticking their butt out. Those are things that let you know that you're creating tension in the body. And my very favorite, personal favorite, is when I go on a date with someone and they're so turned on by me that their lip is twitching on the entire date. I'm just like, ooh, we're good. This is good stuff. Because they're kind of shy, but they're super excited. And so like even when they talk, their lip twitches. My favorite. Do you want to add how you want me to add how the signs for when they're having sex too?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a fun place to end. So again, when you're having sex, there's also like some amazing signs that you can be reading in your partner to make sure that it's like exciting for them and building the tension. And again, the breathing is so important. If it becomes deeper or harder or gasping, especially when you say sexy things to them, like you can feel it like run through the body, or their body starts to get warm or starts to sweat, or they're clenching muscles that like squeezing their legs or arching their back. That's kind of like a tension building moment. If your partner's a man and he gets a stronger erection, you can tell like tension is probably building. Or if your partner's a woman and she becomes wetter, or her vulva gets more swollen, or there's like fluttering of the eyes into the back of the head, or moaning, or noise making, or thrusting, tilting or thrusting of hips. All of those things are signs in the bedroom that you are doing a great job of creating sexual tension. So I just wanted you to know those, so that you can go out in the world and start to create it, and then gauge your success in the realm.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being here with us. We had a great time sharing all of it with you and answering your questions, and we would love to see more of you. So stay tuned. We'll have more webinars. We are having a webinar next week. We're going to post about that. If you, again, we're still accepting signups for the training until midnight tonight. So we would love to see.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. See you next time.